information to share with all of you today. We've got some beautiful faces already on the camera. I'm going to ask for a couple things. One is I'm actually going to hit this mute all button right now. That way we can mitigate as much of the background noise as possible. If any of you do have any questions, feel free to use the raise hand or unmute yourself. Just make sure that we're doing our best to reduce the amount of background noise. Additionally, we're going to also ask, by show of hands here, how many of you have taught a class before? Any classes? Yeah? A couple of you? Have any of you, all right, thank you, Nevin. Have you ever taught a class, Nevin, with a bunch of people with cloths in their face? Like you can't see their face? Yeah, neither have I. So if you guys can do us a favor and turn on your cameras, that way we could actually see all of your beautiful faces. That would be awesome. We want to make this as interactive and personable as possible. I know that was a weird way of going about it, but let's just go with it. Yeah, exactly. Awesome, guys. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get an introduction out of the way really quickly. I would love to introduce all of you, and if you guys can help me give a warm welcome to my friend and who's going to be our trainer for today, Rob Pistone of the Pistone team at Keller Williams VIP. Let's go ahead and give it up for Rob real quickly. There we go. There's some virtual ones for you. All right, Rob, if you can do a quick introduction, tell them a little bit about yourself and why you're qualified for today's class.
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified, but so I've been in the real estate business for probably over 20 years, probably closer to 25 years now. And one of the best ways that, I was able to generate business early on was to generate expired listings. And early on, and when I started coaching,
can't hear you, Rob.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So early on, when I started coaching with my coach, that was one of the two things. Well, there was two things that we wanted to go after was FSBOs and expireds. And why we did that was it's an easy source of leads. Number one, a FSBO, you already know they want to sell, and an expired, they want to sell. They just don't know what the problem is. So that's how I started. So I started 25 years ago. I've been in real estate quite a while, probably the last 15 years here in Las Vegas. Have a fairly successful career. I want to say what my numbers, I don't know. I don't even pay attention anymore, but I've been ranked in the top 1% for well over a decade. And my business has evolved. I don't call as many expireds, and I really should. My coach tells me I should, but I do call them. I do call my expireds. I do call my FSBOs. It's a good way to generate business. So, over 20 years in the business, I've enjoyed tremendous success here. What kind of numbers can I talk about me?
Oh, you think you gave yourself pretty well there.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready to rock.
So I don't know. I don't know what numbers would interest you guys that I can share with you other than, we're a high volume real estate agency, and we developed a lot of relationships out of expired and FSBOs. So with that being said, that's enough about me. Has anyone in the room been calling expireds before? You have. And Lisa, how long have you been doing that?
Oh, you're on mute, Lisa.
Hold on.
I've been doing it for about the last 3 months, and I haven't been very successful at it, so that's why I'm here.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges you're having?
Nobody ever answers the phone.
Okay, that's a good one. Now, is anybody? Go ahead.
When I say 3 or 4 months, I didn't do anything during COVID. I kind of dropped out. So 3 or 4 months that I've actually been doing it, and nobody ever answers.
By show of hands, has anyone else had that problem? Has anyone tried to call expireds before?
Yeah, and I think that's actually going to be one of the other issues that we're probably going to address first and foremost, right? Is why don't agents call? And I think there's a big mind shift that needs to occur in order for us to be comfortable with doing so, right?
Yeah. And, not answering the phone is just part of the territory, Lisa. So don't get discouraged. You've really got to keep at it and be consistent, because you'll get those couple that do answer the phone. And the biggest thing to expireds is to be the first on the phone. And Dan knows I can get a little crude, and people that know me, I know a couple of people on our webinar right now that can see Daniel and and Roselle can know, but getting on the phone with expireds a little later on the day is like walking into the bathroom and sitting on a warm toilet seat. Does that make sense? So you want to be the first one there, not the second or third. So if you're going to call expireds, the earlier the better. Sorry.
Quite the imagery. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this class, shall we? So here's what we're gonna. So why don't you lay out what's going to be the agenda, so that way we can make sure everybody understands what we're going to cover today.
Okay. So before we start, some of the tools you're going to need to call expired listings. Now, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, please stop me and raise your hand. And this is literally the first time I've ever taught a class on the Zoom, so we'll see how this goes. So some of the tools, I wrote down a couple of things. Do you have your expired and FSBO scripts ready? Does your company provide them? Okay, so you want to have that script ready. You also want to have your dialogues ready. Does everyone know what I'm talking about is when I'm talking about dialogues?
Why don't you explain it for us?
Okay, so a dialogue is a response to the questions on the script. So if you guys look at your script, and if it's a decent script, it's going to be a series of questions. Am I correct? Okay, so once you're working down a script, it may start off as, "Hi, Rob Pistone, Keller Williams. Is this the owner? I saw your house on the computer as an expired listing, and I was calling to see when do you plan on listing with the right agent?" You know, something along those lines. I know you guys have seen that script. So what you're going to do is go down that script. So at some part in that script in the very beginning, it's going to say, where are you moving to? Now, when they answer that question, that's when your dialogue starts. So dialogue could be like anything that opens them up and gets them to talk. That's going to be the game changer for you guys. So if you can open them up and get them to talk. So where are they moving to? Why are they moving? You know, why did their plans change? Because obviously their house didn't sell. These are all good questions to get them involved in some kind of dialogue with you.
Yeah, your first question, think of it like when you walk into a retail store. That's that knee-jerk question, and then you get a knee-jerk response. It's when, imagine going into a retail store and they actually continuously engage with you and ask you deeper questions to get to understand who you are and what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking to get you to, right? Is past that knee-jerk response and into an actual conversation with the individual.
Yeah, and any good question starts with a W. Why, who, what, when. Those are all the questions you need to start asking in your dialogue. Does that make sense? Okay, so tools. So expired script, FSBO script. So you need more than just a script. You'll actually need a role play partner. Do you guys understand what role play partners are? Okay. And it's not just someone that's going to go, yes, no, yes, no. You want it to actually simulate a call. Does any of you have experience with a role play partner that's like a dead fish?
Well, let's use the analogy, Daniel Valenzuela, I could see you're a buff guy, man. You go to the gym a lot. You guys think that Daniel Valenzuela goes to the gym and lifts 10-pound weights? And the answer is no, right? That's not what gets him the muscle that he has, right? He goes and he lifts bigger and bigger weights. But if you're working with weak weights, you're not going to build any muscle. So your role play partner, are they a heavyweight in the gym that's actually helping you build a muscle and making it challenging for you, pushing back on you, right? That's the kind of role play partners that you want.
Yeah, because look at Lisa. When you finally get somebody on the phone, what are you going to say? So if they throw something at you, it's kind of like staring off a cliff because you don't know how to respond. Your role play partner should prepare you for that response. So if they say, I'm going to hold off on listing. I'm not going to move right now. If you don't know how to respond to that, you're going to get choked up and go, "Oh, okay, bye." Well, you're never going to convert that lead to an appointment, but the guy who calls next that knows what to say is going to convert that lead to an appointment, and that's going to eventually be a commission check.
Bingo. Yep.
So you need a good role play partner. Why do you need the role play partner? To practice handling objections and to handle hesitations. Does everyone know the difference?
Help us with the hesitations part, because I think objections, we've heard time and again, but what do you mean by that?
So
hesitations?
there's a couple of different types of objections, and Daniel's very good at teaching us this. He's one of the best I've seen. So an objection is, there's conditional objections. What is it?
Well, there are conditions and objections, right? So
Right.
objections, it's either they're missing information or they have misinformation.
Yeah.
Right?
So like an objection with a condition would be like, I took my house off the market because I was moving for a job, but they shut down and laid me off. Now we're not moving. So is there any sense in going on an appointment like that? No. And I'm just skimming the surface, because I would probably ask an additional question, because a lot of expired listings go to expired listing school and they know what to say to get you off the phone. So you would follow that up with, if we brought you an offer today, would you still consider selling? And if they answer that a yes, they may just be bluffing you. But if they said, no, I got another job, we're happy at our house, we're staying, great. Maybe get them in your database and stay connected to them. But if they say, yeah, if I would have got the right offer, hell yeah, I would have moved, then, continue the conversation. So hesitation is like, we were thinking about selling, but I think we're just going to take it off the market right now. And then I think I had taught you guys in another Zoom class, simple objection handlers like really why goes a long way. Daniel, did you ever get to use that with a thumbs up? Really why? Yeah. When you ask really why, when you come from that place of curiosity, they're going to open up and tell you, well, coronavirus, I heard that the sellers aren't buying right now and I'm wasting my time. Okay. They're opening up and telling you your concerns so you can address those concerns. So that's a hesitation.
So the key point there, responding to hesitations, really? Why? Right? Okay.
Yeah, because we all know the market's good. And if someone came to us and said, hey, I think there's going to be a bunch of foreclosures and there's so much unemployment, the market's closed, I'm going to go, really? Why?
And keep in mind, let that dead air rest. Do not follow it up and ask another questions. Let them respond, even if it takes them 10 seconds, right? That's where we see many amateurs will just jump right in. They'll be uncomfortable with the silence. If it expires, you got to get really comfortable with just letting the questions linger for a minute.
Yeah, I think I learned that objection handler from my 9-year-old, because he always says, really why? So really why? Really why? Say that over and over again, because you're going to go, really? Why? Because all the numbers are showing that the market really hasn't slowed down. There's been, and I'm making these numbers up, there's been 100 different homes sold in your zip code just in this last quarter. I'm curious, where did you get your information from?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you want to discredit whatever information they're looking at. So that's an example of a role play partner, a good role play partner. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go find good, strong role play partners, someone that we could really practice our skill with, and you're not going to find a dead fish. And if you're going to find a dead fish, you're going to help them get to be a living fish. Okay, so the next one you have is an account. Next thing I wrote down. So the first is your expired and FSBO scripts. The second one is a role play partner to help you with objections and hesitations and dialogues. The next one is an accountability partner. Do you guys use accountability partners? Great, Lisa. I don't know where you learned this business for such a new agent, but you're in the right place. So an accountability partner is somebody that you can call after your prospecting session and say, well, how did it go? How many appointments did you set? You told me that you were going to set 2 appointments. How come you only set 1? You could do fun things like, hey, if I don't convert one of these leads in this month, I owe you $500, or I owe you a dinner to a steakhouse, or I have to make a donation to any political party you hate. Something that really motivates somebody. So that's a good accountability partner. And if you want to do expireds and FSBOs, you got to dedicate the time, find that accountability partner that's going to keep you on track. The next thing people always ask me, do I need a dialer? Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Depends on your budget. I would definitely know that you need to get something to get a source of leads. And where are you going to get the source of leads from? Some of the things you could do is you can go to these companies like RedX, LandVoice, Vulcan 7, espresso agent. There's a few different sources of leads out there that will compile all the expired data out of your MLS and actually do a little data mining. So it'll give you the phone numbers of people to reach versus having to do it manually.
So let's come back one step though. So a sales dialer, for those of you that don't know, piece of technology where you could have a list of phone numbers uploaded into a website, click a button, and then that technology will call the numbers for you. So they have single line dialers, 2-line dialers, or 3-line dialers. It makes you much more efficient if you plan on doing telemarketing in your sales business. Here's the key thing though. When you're doing expireds, I think the question that we need to answer right now is, do we want to muscle through these and using a power dialer, or do we want to kind of take our time in between each of these and do some research?
Yeah. So the nice thing about the RedX is it will give you addresses. So if you have an investment property that didn't sell, a lot of times they'll have the address and the mailing address. Some of the data will come up. So if you want to follow up with an expired letter, I think we have templates for expired letters. I'll usually send out an expired letter as well. So I'll follow up with a call, a letter, or sometimes even a door knock. So you can do something like that. And then last but not least, the biggest thing you need to do every day, and I really encourage you to time block your schedule and get this in your schedule first thing in the morning. So you're going to wake up early. You're going to say your affirmations. You're going to get it in your head that you're in a positive mindset, because you need that positive mindset. You're going to get on the phones and you're going to start prospecting. So one thing I did write down, and maybe you guys should write it down too, is just for the week while you're starting out, is to complete 2 prospecting sessions that you're going to dedicate to expireds and FSBOs. Do I want you to do it every day? Sure. But if you haven't worked out in the gym, like Dan said, and you try to jump in 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, it might not work out so good. So I want you guys to start with 2 prospecting sessions. Start with an hour or 2 a day, and lock the door. Don't check your email. Don't check your voicemail. Don't take any calls. Just prospect. So you're going to do your sessions. Then you're going to try to make 2 appointments per week. Okay. If you can make more, go for it. But your goal is just to make 2 appointments and get in the door. Just get in 2 doors. Okay. Then you're going to add 5 names to your CRM. Does everyone use a CRM?
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Good.
So try to add 5 names to your CRM, because maybe someone isn't interested in selling right now, but maybe you can say, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you don't want to sell right now. And you've pushed them and pushed them and pushed them to the point where you know they're just not going to sell right now, that they're waiting on something bigger. I'm going to add you to my would sell list. Would you be interested in that?
Here's what I love about what you're having them focus on too, is those are the 2 most important things when you focus on expireds: setting appointments and adding leads to your database, right? So those are the 2 goals that Rob is having you focus on. Just get 2 sessions in an hour apiece and focus on those 2 there.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example of that. I just had a listing in Lake Las Vegas in January. $550,000 listing. It was somebody I added to my would sell list maybe a year prior. Now, they called me back, and I ended up listing that property and double ending it. So I ended up making like $17,000 just by putting that name in my CRM. How many people like $17,000? Yeah. So that's the thing, is you want to, if you can get some engagement, at least try to feed your CRM. That's the biggest thing, is you're prospecting, making appointments, and feeding names into your CRM. Try to do that at least a couple of days a week.
So just to recap here, guys, get yourself some scripts, right? Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Kevin Ward. There are a dime a dozen scripts online. But get yourself scripts, get yourself a role play partner, right? Somebody who's going to actually put your development and your skills before the personal relationship. That tends to what gets in the way of an effective role play partner, right? Is we don't want to be too hard on each other and mess up the confidence. No, it's about developing a skill set here, because for sale by owners and expireds, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for somebody to just pick up the phone and jump right into. You got to develop skills in order to really get this converted. So you want somebody who's going to accelerate that learning curve for you. Get an accountability partner, somebody who's going to be just as emotionally invested in your goals as you are. Get yourself a sales dialer, potentially, right? I would even venture to say at least a single line dialer. That way it saves you some time having to type in the numbers. Those little minutes add up, right? And we want to get you into as many contacts as you can. Redx has that. In addition, Robin, Redx gives you this data as well. So look into Redx data. Mojo Sales Dialer has data, Vulcan 7. And then last but not least, take on Rob's challenge of taking 2 sessions where you're looking for 2 appointments and 5 leads. So we're about to move to our next section. Was there a question? Okay, somebody just unmuted themselves. Okay, great. All right, so what do we got next, Rob?
So I don't know if they can see these slides.
They will now, yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so I put together a couple of slides, and like I said, feel free to reach out to me or Dan after, because I know there's only so much I can cover within an hour. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you.
Okay, so as you can see by the slide, the expired listing is to many salespeople the most difficult to get. Now, why do you think it's the most difficult to get? I can tell you most people are scared of the rejection. They're scared of the confrontation, and they're scared of what they're going to get, what the prospect is going to tell them. That's the first step, is getting over that feeling. Because
so how do you do that, right? Because we have 34 people watching, and I would venture to say at the very minimum, half have resonated with what you just said.
So if your role play partner has punched you in the face 30 times and you take one more punch, is it going to hurt? No. So if you don't have a role play partner and you don't practice and you get on the phone and someone calls you, this, that, and the other thing, and you get your feelings hurt, it's going to be hard to get past that and build up the skin and the muscle to get through that stuff. Because some of the best salespeople can get past that, whereas the ones that aren't so good, they give up and never call expireds again. So just because you have a bad experience, you just have to keep going through and talk to your role play partner and say, hey, this guy called me this and called me that and said he was going to do this and said he was going to do that. Bounce it off your role play partner, bounce it off your team leader, bounce it off one of the experienced agents, and they'll tell you, okay, well, maybe, like me, I just had somebody slam the door in my face the other day. I thought I was door knocking. A guy slammed the door so hard, I thought his door frame was going to break off. So, I just walked away from it and I shook my head and said, man, that really nice guy just had a bad day. And you move on.
It all comes back to, and many of you have heard this before, what is the story that you tell yourself immediately after something happens to you? Yeah. And for many of us, the minute we already have heard the horror stories of expireds, we already have heard what it's done to people and cold calling in and of itself. And so that first expired, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be one that's a little bit challenging, right? And so we will immediately create the story that all expireds are going to be like that, right? So how do you, now that you're already cognizant of that, how do you retrain your brain to say, hey, you know what? That was one down, on to the next one.
Yep.
Right?
Because in this business, my coach told me a long time ago, rejection is part of winning. It goes hand in hand, because the faster you can get through the rejections, the faster you can get to the person that's going to say yes. And I know you've probably heard that a million times, but it's so true when it comes to prospecting.
Bingo. Yep.
So the next slide just kind of reiterates kind of what we just talked about. They don't like to call expired listings because of the rejections involved. Well, we already figured out how to build our muscle and to not let the rejections bother us is by practicing them. And you can't get better without practice. And I can't say that enough. You have to practice. I, to this day, after 20 years, still practice with my role play partners and my accountability partners every day.
Yeah, I think the other reason why most agents don't call expireds, they believe every other agent calls expireds.
Yeah.
Just for giggles, drop in the chat box, answer the question, do you call expireds? Just put a yes or a no.
Okay, as with for sale by owners, new licensees will call in expireds more than the experienced veterans because they don't have a lot of listing prospects. Is that true with you guys? Okay, so I love the fact that new licensees will call on expireds because they don't have as many leads as the more experienced veterans. But what happens in the process is you have the lead, you have the appointment, you have the lead conversion, you have a signed contract. So there's 4 steps in the process. Unfortunately, the new licensees, once they get past step 1, don't know how to do step 2, 3, and 4. So if you don't know step 2, 3, and 4, definitely come talk to us. We can help you with that. Because once you get in the door and you set the appointment, now you've got to present, okay? When you present, you got to dig out their motivation. If you don't know how to dig out their motivation, that's going to be very difficult. And you may end up wasting your time. If you don't know how to price the property and present that correctly, you're just going to blow yourself out the door. So all these things are a lot of work. And if you don't know how to align those different specific skills, it's going to be very difficult to call expired. So just getting them on the phone and converting the appointment, step 1. So step 2 is learning how to dig out the motivation. Step 3 is learning how to present by price, find their motivation. And step 4, closing them for the signature on their listing contract and get the house on the market. So there's definitely a set of skills. And I love that new licensees do call, but I see them fizzle out so many times because they don't know what to say when they get to the door. Is there anyone else in that how do I say it?
That feels that same way.
Yeah,
I would
it feels
venture to
that
say there's
same
probably,
way,
yeah. And we'll get into some specific things to say here in a minute. Let's see, what's the next thing here? So the primary reason why a property expires is price. Although the seller will always tell you it's because of the agent.
And you kind of want them to, but you want to get money out of the way first. So we all know any monkey can sell a house if it's priced right, right? So what happens with price if the house is too high? Will you ever get someone off their price if they're not motivated to sell? No. In 25 years, I haven't been able to do it yet. So before you go out, you have to find out why they think didn't sell. So they all know it's the price, and deep down they do know. But when you go out there, you can say, hey, Mr. Seller, I see you have a great house. I'm puzzled as to why it didn't sell. Houses like yours are selling all over Las Vegas. Can you tell me why you think your home didn't sell? They're going to say, well, I think my agent wasn't very good. Okay, great. Well, how did you find that agent? And what did he do that you liked? What did he do that you didn't like? So a lot of times if they say, well, we're not sure why it didn't sell, but we just don't think our agent did the right job. Okay, great. Well, now you can do some kind of an analysis. You can sit down and say, hey, I noticed on your listing you had, iPhone pictures. Did I tell you the difference between iPhone pictures and professional pictures? I noticed you didn't have a 3D tour. I noticed on your MLS listing, it said that you had a 3-bedroom when you actually have a 4-bedroom. Were you aware of that? I also looked in your history. It doesn't look like you did any price reductions, Mr. Seller. Did you realize how important a price reduction is in selling a home? And then you go into these questions, and what does it make you look like?
I'm like an expert, right?
Well, it makes you look like you knew more than the last guy.
Yep.
Okay, does that help you guys?
Just remember, and to Rob's point, price is going to be the ultimate factor, but know that there are other factors in regards to why a home sells, right? So you got to look at the condition of the property. Was it cluttered up? Was it personalized? Did it have religious stuff on it?
Yeah.
Right? What was the accessibility to the property? Was it under no-show? Was it requiring an appointment with an extended amount of time? Right? What was the marketing and exposure like? Was it put all over the place with professional photos, or was it taken, to Rob's point, with a BlackBerry phone? Right? Like you'll be surprised just by the sheer fact that we have 18,000 real estate agents on our board in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
How many of them do you think really are knowledgeable on how to list a property and list it well to sell? Right?
To add what Dan said, you want to do a marketability analysis. So you tell the seller, hey, I don't want to be too pushy, but do you mind if I stop by and give you a complimentary marketability analysis? It's a no pressure thing. If you like what I have to say, let's sit down and talk more. If you don't, let's shake hands and leave as friends. But I'm here to help you. Come from a place of contribution. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you a free marketability analysis, and we can go through some of the things that I feel you could do better next time you put your home on the market.
Now, what I would caution really quickly as we're talking about this topic here is you might feel inclined to do a little bit of research on a listing to see why it was expired, right? To prepare those guns as you go into this conversation. Just know that you don't want to share too much of that on the first call, because at that point, you haven't built the trust and relationship with them to make the decision on if they in fact want to work with you. Save that for an appointment, but also go into this call now with confidence that you know why that property didn't sell.
Yeah, but
right.
The biggest point out of that is to come from a place of contribution.
Right.
A lot of agents want to talk too much about them and how good they are. And
good point.
And when you're talking to a home seller, this is a goodie that I'm going to share with you guys that I've had from old coaches of mine. When you talk about the price of somebody's home, the home is probably one of their most important things in their life, kind of like their kid. So if you go in and this guy's telling you, oh, my kid is this and my kid is that, and you're going in and saying, yeah, your kid is great, but he's not this. Well, that's exactly what you're doing with price. You're saying, well, I know your house is nice, but your house is not that nice because it's only worth this. And I know a lot of agents, they like to use that word, your house is worth. So avoid talking about price, because that will turn off the homeowner very quickly. So remember, talk about their home as if you're talking about their kid. Does that help you guys?
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one thing I hear real estate agents always do, and it drives me bananas. And it's just my opinion. There's always a way to do it. But when you start telling people your house is worth, erase those words from your vocabulary. Price is really a factor of how quickly do you want it in your pocket? How fast, how much, how fast? Because if you got to sell in 60 days and you've got it priced to sell in 120 days, does that pose a problem? Have I talked about price? I don't have to say, hey, no, your price is, you have to price it here because this is what it's worth. No, Mr. Seller, we both agree we need to get you sold in 60 days. According to the numbers, here's the homes that have sold in 60 days. What price do you think we should put on it?
Looks like Jeff Campbell, you had dropped a question. How do we do that? Sorry for the timeliness, but what were you referring to? If you can unmute yourself and tell us as we continue. Jeff, can you hear us? Okay, we're going to continue. All right, so what's the next?
I can hear you. I'm sorry. I was having a problem unmuting. I was just talking about, Rob, you were talking about price.
Yes.
And how to approach a seller about price.
Yeah.
And my question was, okay, how do you do that? How do you approach them? And I think you answered some of it when you talked about, okay,
yep,
here's a price at 90 days, and here's a price at 30 days. All right, here's a price at 120 days. Here's a price at 60 days.
Correct.
Which price do you think we're at? So you're asking questions.
Absolutely. So I'm getting the seller to answer their own question. You don't want to answer that question for them, because the minute you start getting your opinion out there, you've got about a 1 in 2 chance of getting it right.
Bingo. Yep.
So you want them to talk. You want them to tell them what their needs and wants are. And, if we can get your home sold in 60 days for top dollar, who wouldn't want to sell it if they needed to sell in 60 days or 90 days or 120 days, whatever the case may be. But you want to get them to talk and tell you and open their book. And I know Rozelle's on this call, and she's heard me say this a million times, right?
Mm-hmm. So the next thing here, it talks about the majority of expired listings will tell you they are not going to sell their property at this time because they're frustrated with the process. In reality, they will list with an agent who shows them what has to be done.
Yes. So when someone hires an agent that just says, oh yeah, we'll just put this, oh yeah, it'll sell for this, oh yeah, it'll do this, oh yeah, we'll do open houses, we'll sell it. Well, they've gone through all that. They just want to say, okay, what's going on? Because I saw the open houses. I didn't see people coming through. We had cookies baked in our oven. We had this, we had that, and nothing seemed to do it. So at that point, you have to really, really, really know how to focus in on their motivation and focus in on the right price, because it's going to sell. And if you're dealing, you got to really be careful with the sellers you choose to work with at this point, because some of them will be like, yeah, I don't care if it takes me another year to sell it. I want this price. Well, then you're going to have to make a decision. To me, that kind of listing is being held hostage, and I probably wouldn't take it. So we can go on to the next slide. How much time are we at?
We're good. Yeah, let's get through the slides in about 7 minutes, and then we can take some questions.
So the key to expired listing is urgency. Urgency in itself to talk to them and see them, and urgency in them to make a decision. So what I mean by urgency, as a real estate agent, can we create that urgency or not? And that answer is yes. Urgency can be done by our persuasion and the words we choose to use. So for example, someone says, and I think I had already talked about this, someone says, you know, I don't think I'm going to sell right now. I think I'm just going to take my home off the market. Well, first we got to find out, A, if they're a motivated seller, and B, you know, if they can or need to sell. That's two questions you got to ask yourself. So the urgency is, you know, I don't feel like selling right now. We were testing the market, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, you know, we can create that urgency and going, really, why? You know, get them to respond. And then we can throw in something like, you know, Mr. Seller, I don't know about you, but what would happen if the rates would go up? Would that take a couple of buyers out of the market? Well, I think it would. Well, with that being said, I think we can both agree that we'll probably need to sit down sooner and later, because we just don't know when the rates are going to go up. And if they do, we're going to lose buyers. And we don't want to have to do that, do we? So let's sit down, see if we can join forces, get your house back on the market and get it sold. Make sense?
So through that, a couple of things, right? And I would venture, or I would suggest for everyone to write this down. You know, your mindset needs to revolve around two things when it comes to creating urgency. How can I create curiosity, and how can I cast doubt? Right? So you heard Rob referencing interest rates. He's creating curiosity and casting doubt. Casting doubt, if interest rates were to have any sort of changes, can you still do what you want to do, right?
Yeah, so let's do this. Why don't everybody, if you can, write down 5 questions that'll create urgency and practice that with your role play partner.
Bingo. Right? It's all about creating curiosity and casting doubt. And another technique that you heard Rob doing as he was talking to urgency, he was also ending his sentences with tie downs. Getting agreement with the individual as he was saying every single item there. That would be another skill for you to hone there, tie downs.
Yeah, right? You know, as far as getting your skills honed in, I'm going to sound like a broken record again, but Dan is amazing at it. So I would maybe schedule a session with Dan with some of his role play script practices. He can teach you all that stuff. This is stuff I've practiced for years, and I just do it naturally.
Yep. I'll pay you your $20 later for doing it. Since most expireds will relist within 24, this is a huge point. Most expireds will relist when?
24 to 48 hours.
Within 24 to 48 hours. This is why with new expireds, you want to get to them as soon as possible. Make your first contact first thing in the morning, and if you're not able to reach them, go to their door in the afternoon.
Yep. We don't like warm toilet seats, so let's get out there.
Yep. You know, I know many of our agents, they're heeding the advice of, you know, calling as early as possible.
Yeah.
8 o'clock or earlier, right?
Yeah.
By 8:15, the expired listings, and I hate to say this on their behalf because it is frustrating on their aspect. They've already talked to 15 people by 8:15. They've already had that phone ring a billion times, and they've already created their own script, which is, no, I'm not interested, get off the phone. That's what you're dealing with. So the question is, how do you break that script so that you can actually be able to help them? The first way is be the first person they talk to. They haven't figured out the script yet, right?
Yeah, you want to get on your expireds first thing in the morning, and then even follow up in the afternoon, because if they hang up on you, they're not going to remember you called them. Okay, so let's move on. What was my next slide here?
Since they've had a bad experience, showing confidence is critical. The more confidence you display, the better your chances of getting the listing. So I think, yes, it's one thing to say, be confident. So what can our agents do here to maybe increase their confidence?
Okay, so increasing confidence is easy. You practice. Let's start with the role play. Number 2, one of the best things I can give you guys is to know your market stats. So how many, by show of hands, would go talk to a financial advisor that didn't know what was going on in the stock market? Wouldn't you want your financial advisor to know what's going on with the stock market? So I would expect most people would want that out of the real estate professional that they hire. So knowing your market stats, how many homes sold, how many homes got listed, how many homes went under contract, and more importantly, how many homes like yours failed to sell?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And your job is to come in and help them, if they want to sell again, not to be on that list a second time around, because nobody wants to be on that list of expireds. Make sense?
Yep. Absorption rate, right? Months of inventory,
Yep.
turnover rate of the neighborhood.
Yep.
Right? You want to know those kind of things. Be an expert of their area. Yeah. Don't set an appointment for tomorrow when you can get one today. Oh, this is a big one. Since there are other agents calling them also, do it now. I'm going to say one thing really quickly before you jump into this. When you are calling expireds, actually when you're calling at any time, especially with expireds, my question to you would be, are you dressed to impress and ready to go on an appointment right then and there? Or are you wearing the sweats and the t-shirt, right? Because you're when you are dressed to impress and you're ready to go to that appointment now.
Yeah.
Right? It shows up in your phone calls when you're not ready to go to that appointment.
Yep.
Right?
That's
so this is such a good point here that you're bringing up.
That's why to this day, and everyone has their own schedule, but I feel like if you want to be that agent that's prospecting for expireds and the just solds and the FSBOs, you have to have the mentality of a top athlete. I mean, I to this day still get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I work out, I say my, affirmations, I get my mind ready. So when I walk into the office or get onto the phone, my mind is clear. I'm not worried about what I'm having for dinner or what I'm having for lunch or, what did I not finish yesterday? You got to have your mind clear. So you want to start out the day strong, ready to go to work, like Dan said. Like I said, don't check those emails, push them out. Don't check the voicemails, don't check the text messages, just go out and prospect.
Yep. Set the appointment for today. If you set it out for 2-3 days out, that individual will have talked to 100 agents and might not even remember who you were.
And that's one thing you can do with your role play partner is practice closing for an appointment. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of agents will say, hey, well, why don't we get together? How does that feel? What do you think? And they're just not going to set the appointment. You have to be very assertive. Hey, I can come by today at 5, tomorrow at 9. What works better for you? Well, none of them work better for me. Well, tell you what, Mr. Seller, this is a really important phone call for me, and I really want to get to know you. How about if we set an appointment for Wednesday at 2? Well, what's going on at Wednesday? Well, what works for you? When are you usually home? Because, one of my coaches had told me the level of income that you have is at the level you stop. So as salespeople, you have to keep pushing for the close. So when you're prospecting, you're pushing for the appointment. You're pushing for the appointment. When you're at the listing table, you're pushing for the signature. So don't take no for an answer once. Take it at least 3 to 4 times before you give up.
On average, it's going to be 5 to 7 times. Mm-hmm. And it's just about asking in a different way over and over again. Because the worst that'll happen is, and I know I'm streaming this on Facebook, so some of our personal friends might not like, the worst that'll happen is you'll get hung up on. But outside of that, keep going. Because at the end of the day, you know what your goal is. Your goal is not just to take a listing. Your goal is to actually help that individual. They had a dream, they had a motivation, they had a reason for selling their home and moving. And because of their choice in another agent, they're not able to go after that. So hang on to the reason why you're calling them and don't give up. Don't give up for them, let alone yourself. Right?
Yep.
Remember, high energy, a lot of intensity, and constant follow-up are critical. If you are not confident, they will list with somebody else. I love what you also said there. We've talked about confidence, but you also talk about constant follow-up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like I said, if you can imagine $100 bill laying on the sidewalk, are you going to try for it once? Or are you going to grab it a few times? Well, we're not talking about $100 bills. We're talking about $1,000 bills. So how motivated are you? How hungry are you for that ultimate payday? Keep that in mind.
Yep. Many of these prospects will convert in the follow-up as well. So just make sure you have a systematic approach to how you're following with the individual. It's going to be a combination of text messages, neighborhood market reports, door knocking them because you're in the area, right? But you want to make sure you're nurturing these individuals, because keep this in mind. Most agents who work expires, they're looking for the low-hanging fruit. So if that individual is not ready today, what do you think they do with that individual?
Well, not only that, but if they do see you working, they'll be like, I remember talking to that guy. He actually does work.
Mm-hmm.
My real estate agent came by once in his BMW, and I never saw him again. And every time I called him, he was at the bar. So you don't want to be that guy.
Yep. Don't disappear like a fart in the wind. That's what we say here. All right. What else we got? What will homeowners do when their property expires? So here's a couple things. Approximately a third of them will relist with their current agent. A third will relist with a new agent within 30 days. Oh, the third rule. And approximately a third of the homeowners will leave their home off the market for a month or more, but most of them will relist with another agent within 120 days. A high percentage will relist with the first or second agent that contacts them. So talk us through.
Okay, so I think the first one is a pretty self-explanatory thing. A lot of times you'll see that in the luxury market, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because luxury homes do tend to sit on the market a little longer, and they probably didn't give their agent enough time. And, sometimes it's a good relationship with that agent, but we can get around that too. Approximately a third of the homeowners will relist with a new agent within 30 days. I think that's probably more true than not. Because a lot of them will probably call homey.com the first time around, or they'll call, the 1% guys or whatever the case may be. And they'll find out that just slapping a sign in the front yard isn't going to do the trick. Approximately a third of the homeowners will leave their home off the market for a month or more, but most of them will relist with another agent within 120 days. Now, why is that? If a homeowner decides he's going to sell his house, that thought doesn't just disappear, because the wife is looking at model homes. And I guarantee that once their house didn't sell, they're going to sit back and think those dreams of moving are not going to go away. So you got to stay in contact with them. Like I said, if you're on a would sell list, would you mind if I contacted you if I had a buyer in your neighborhood, or someone that wants to look in your neighborhood? That way you show them that you care and you're coming from that place of contribution, and you can put yourself in that position to be that agent in 120 days.
Yeah, most of you manage a pipeline where you keep track of a 0 to 3 month, 3 month prospect. They should absolutely be in that A group where you're talking to them once a week, some form of touch, right? Because if they're not ready now, they're going to be ready at some point very soon. And most agents have left them alone like farts in the wind after that first call attempt.
Yep.
And just because they're not ready. They're not ready right now.
And then a high percentage will relist with the first or second agent that contacts them. And I can say that's true. I've been that agent where I've called on people that they didn't even know their home expired. And if they didn't know their home expired, a lot of times I've talked to them, they didn't even know the name of their real estate agent. So it's very possible that you will get them to relist really quickly.
So guys, we know it's just your contact. So we know there's value in doing some Q&A. So we wanted to make sure that we left some time to answer some of your more specific questions, whether it's about scripts that you would like, objections you've heard, processes or strategies that you're looking to implement. What questions do you guys have that Rob can answer for you guys today? Feel free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Everybody's nervous.
I don't know. Maybe I didn't do a good job. No one has a question.
Or maybe you did too good of a job. What questions do you guys have?
Lisa, hit me with something.
I knew that was going to happen. Let's see. I don't know. I don't really have anything.
Okay.
Follow-up ideas. Adrian is asking about follow-up ideas. So what do you got?
Follow-up ideas.
So they're not ready today. So what do I do to nurture them until they're ready?
Call them back, door knock them, send them a expired letter. There's all types of things you could do to follow up.
I have one now.
Oh, there we go.
When you're following up, and I always try to do something of value to give me a reason to call. What's some good ones for expireds?
So if you go to the door and you knock on the door and they answer, just say, hey, you know, it was, you want to make it look like you went out of their way to get to the door and knock on the door and talk to them about helping them sell their home. Okay. You don't want to go, hey, you know, I've been trying to call you and you just keep hanging up on me. And I figured the best way to do that is just to knock on your door and get you to call. Well, in today's time, you got to be very respectful of space and distance and people's, you know, maybe fears about COVID, but you want to knock on the door, ring the bell, stand back, smile, and say, you know, I'm here because of this, you know, and I'm wondering who's helping you sell your home. That's a good follow-up, okay? Generally, when you get to them face-to-face, 9 times out of 10, it's a pleasant conversation. So I really, really encourage the door knock, especially if they're in your area. Door knock as many expireds as you can. Unfortunately, I don't think there's too many right now, but
yeah,
if you can door knock expireds, that's probably the best thing you can do.
So door knocking would be Go ahead.
Are you currently knocking? My coach is.
Yeah, I like door knocking.
Not that I don't want to, but I just don't feel like it's appropriate at this time. And my coach is trying to make me do it. So you guys are door knocking?
I door knock, yeah, I do. And you know, not too many. If someone's really scared of it, you can tell. They'll come to the door with a mask and they'll say, I'm in that high risk group, whatever the case may be. Just be respectful of it. But I haven't had anyone tell me, get the hell out of here, you're going to give me coronavirus.
Yeah, be respectful. Stand 6 feet away from the door. If you're wearing a mask, but one of the things with the mask is if you're waiting for them to answer, I might pull the mask down a little bit, because keep in mind, a mask might be intimidating for somebody coming to your door, right? So just keep the mask down. As soon as somebody answers, pull it back up and be safe. That way they know that you're not going to go and bum rush them. I think another follow-up idea outside of things like a smart video, a text, an email, I remember seeing one successful agent, what she was doing was she would do the door knock, like Rob is saying. When she's leaving the house, she would turn around and take a picture of it. And then she signed up for one of those no card services like send out cards or AM cards. And she would go back into the system and upload the picture, and it says just sold on the picture. So kind of like, imagine like this, and it says just sold with a picture of the house. And on the back, the message says, wouldn't you like your house to have this message? Call me, right? So just little things like that to keep, the whole name of the game with this follow-up is keeping front of mind. So that as the agents continue to go after them, you're the one that they're remembering.
And thank you cards. If you get them to talk to you, send them a thank you card immediately.
Bingo. Yep. We got a couple more questions here. How do you get their phone numbers? Yeah, Rob had mentioned RedX, Vulcan 7. Those would be 2 services, or Land Voice. You could pay with any of those services. Title companies will give you them for free. Keep in mind, they're giving many of their partners those numbers as well. So but you'll be the one that calls them. So, but those would be some services. Lisa, it looks like you had something to add.
I had a question on that. I have Land Voice, and there's been expireds that I've seen in the MLS that were expired, and I can't find them in there. Do you guys think that any program is particularly better than another? Like maybe is Vulcan 7 better, or are they all the same? I just had a situation where my client liked a particular house, and when I looked for it, it said it was expired, but I couldn't find it anywhere in my thing, in my Land Voice. So,
well, all you want is the owner's contact information. So I'd say the 2 things that I would do is probably go to the next step and maybe try to find it through White Pages or one of those services, or just go door knock the property. Or just
I did all that. If any of those were better than another.
Yeah, I mean, I would try to door knock the property. Obviously, if it's in a country club or something like that, it's going to be tougher. I used to send I used to, drop off FedEx envelopes with my information in it so they would open it. I mean, it's a little sneaky, but you can do it.
Yeah, to answer your question, I would say RedX was always my favorite for data.
Okay.
RedX.
Okay.
What papers do you bring to the door knocking?
Your contract.
Yeah, your listing agreement. Yeah. Don't overthink what you bring to the door.
Yeah.
Right? Bring a listing agreement. And if you have a pre-listing packet that you usually drop off, bring that. But don't overthink it. This is where agents will make a mistake is they'll spend so much time and energy. I got to make the perfect thing. This is going to do a lot more than a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Right? This and this. So just come prepared more with your objection handling and your scripts than any sort of handout.
Yeah, just get ready to give a listing presentation and hopefully sign them right there on the spot.
Bingo. Right? They've heard presentations. That's what got them in the pickle they're in. They're looking for somebody that knows what they're doing, that's confident, right? They're looking for a being, not just a presentation at this point. There's so many for sale by owners and expireds. How are you able to engage a seller within the first 3 seconds? I feel like you're shouting at me with the all caps. I love it. So here, I'll share my best practice, which is first off, think about what's going on in the mind of for sale by owners and expireds, right? They are considered low-hanging fruit, so they're going to get called by agents. So with that being said, they already think of us as little sharks in the water, and they've just let out a little bit of blood. So one of my favorite things to do, and Danny's probably laughing with his camera off and all these other individuals, because it's the same trick that they're using that's getting them past the first step, which is simply saying, hey, I'm assuming that you're getting a call from a lot of real estate agents. Is that right? Yes. And I'm assuming that's pretty frustrating. It feels like you're just let out a little blood in the water and there's a bunch of sharks swimming after you. Is that right? Yeah. I get how that could be frustrating. I'm here to help. And then go right into your script. That little level of alignment, you'll be surprised by how that opens up the door for these conversations to happen. Shows you're a professional, you know what's going on, and you're not just jumping right into your script.
Well, I think the biggest thing, Jeff, is I think in your mind that there's no difference between real estate agents. And that's kind of what I'm getting out of your question. So if they go to the door, what am I going to say that's any different? Well, the thing is that we're not created equal. All of us have different skill sets. And I can tell you right now, if all of us were the same, we'd all be making the same amount of money. And the numbers just don't show that.
Daniel, I appreciate your comments. And no, I don't think that we're all the same. But I think, anybody that prospects, a beginner or someone that's like myself, been doing it a long time, engaging the seller is very difficult. We rarely get to the second or third question before they hang up. So I was going to ask Daniel, is that your opening line? Not, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm sure you know that your home has come up on my computer as an expired listing. And I was just wondering, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? That's not your opening line. Your opening line is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're getting a lot of calls, aren't you? Is that what you're saying, Daniel?
Bingo. That's right. And I don't want to go down my rabbit hole here, but just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, is that these guys, they're hearing the same thing over and over again. And those questions are the valid questions. But what we need to be cognizant of, it really doesn't matter what that first question is. At some point, that alignment will help you keep the conversation moving forward, though. Okay? Most of these, most expires are probably going to cut you off before you get that first question up. Once they smell that weird, stinky, I'm a realtor through the phone, and immediately that's when you got to pivot. I mean, I would recommend a book to you guys. Have you read Pitch Perfect? Or, I'm sorry, not Pitch Perfect. Whoops. That's what I watch on the weekends. Is it Pitch Anything? Yeah, Pitch Anything. So Pitch Anything is a great book. It gives you a whole bunch of different topics for sales. One of my favorite things that they talk about is what's called frame control. And that is exactly what you're looking to master with expires. That's why Rob is talking about confidence. He's talking about taking control of the conversation. It's exactly what sellers are looking for when their listing has expired. This will teach you the formula for that.
My thing is, Jeff, is you got to think Bruce Lee. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Bruce Lee, when if he takes a punch in the face, is he going to just throw another punch back and then take another punch and take another punch? That's not the way Bruce Lee does it.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Lee redirects the energy and turns it back around. So I don't know what your experience level is in scripts, but I encourage you to find a role play partner that you can practice those hard objections with, and learn how to turn that around and get them. You got to get on their side. That's how you're going to get them to not hang up on you. Because if you say the same old thing that everyone else is saying, then you're probably going to get hung up on. But if you can get past that first real objection, and you're going to have to practice this, you can turn that energy around and get to the second question.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Hey, Bob, thanks. I appreciate that. I have some availability in my schedule, and Daniel can tell you how to contact me. I'd be more than happy to role play with you.
I'd be more than happy to help you.
Boom. All right, let's take 2 more questions, and then we'll go ahead and leave our contact information to answer anybody else's questions and tell you how you can get a hold of us. The first thing is, we'll take 3 questions in. Where do we find expired sellers' contact info? So we kind of cover that. Another service that you could look into if you're looking for specific homes would be Spokio. I know there's probably a bunch of those services, but you could like type in an address and then it'll pull up the owner and their contact info. For out-of-state owners, when do you send them comps and net sheets?
Well, it's it's from Daniel.
Yes, from Daniel.
Okay, great. Daniel, great question. What I usually do for out-of-state owners is, number one, I'll send them a contact email, but you don't want to send them comps and net sheets until you're giving a listing presentation. And then I wouldn't even give them the net sheet till the end of the presentation. So you want to keep those cards close to your chest as possible. Does that help?
Yeah. The minute you do that, you've answered the question, am I going to work with this individual? And remember, they're not hiring you because of your ability to run comps and a net sheet, right? There's much more to it, but that's really the value they're looking for.
There's one thing you do want to do, though, is maybe one of the questions you want to ask your potential seller is there amount of money that you need to net in your pocket to be a seller? Okay. That way, you know what you're looking at. Okay. So if you don't absolutely get this figure, what are your plans for this property? Because more than likely it's an investment property. Selling an investment property tax-wise is different for different people. It's not like selling an owner-occupied home. So what is it that you need to see? What is the bottom line? Tell me a little bit more about that bottom line, and then go from there. Does that help?
Bingo. Yep. Can't door knock vacant properties, non-owner occupied help. Put a sign in the yard. They'll never know. I'm just kidding. That was just a joke. Don't do that. Don't do that. That was just a joke. All right. Please don't do that. All right. So what do you do with vacant properties that they can't do?
That was from Jenny?
Yep, from Jenny. Non-owner occupied vacant property.
Okay. So vacant property, you're just going to have to go through the other ways of just being a detective. And part of being a good real estate agent is being a good detective. So go through public records, look at the MLS listing. Sometimes the agent just puts their name and number in there. So go be a detective, check through Spokio, white pages, those type of things. 9 times out of 10, if you do a little digging, you can find out how to get a hold of the owner.
Door knock the neighbors too while you're at it. Yep. As usual, lots of value. Thanks, guys. Not a question, but a comment, and we appreciate that, Jeff. As we appreciate all of you. So with that being said, we are going to save this recording. You can get more of our videos and trainings if you go on YouTube and search Keller Williams VIP. We always appreciate having you all join us. Also know that we do welcome any sort of one-on-ones, even if it's to talk about, the 2 issues that we see most agents suffer with the most is lead generation or lead conversion. We're happy to do one-on-ones with those and talk through your business plan. Just go to meetmahabir.com, MAHAB as in boy, IR, and I'm happy to schedule a one-on-one with myself or one of our top agents. But yeah, well, hopefully we got some value, or you guys got some value out of this. Would love if 1, 2, or at least 3 of you guys would go ahead and unmute and tell us what was one aha that you took from today's class. Who'd like to go first?
Maybe I can have my coach do another follow-up.
That'd be a good idea.
Can we do that?
Yeah. Who's going to give us the first aha? Resources for contact info. Love that, Connie. Who's going to give us number 2? And
I think it's pretty simple. What Rob said, it's pretty simple that sometimes we forget to do is just know your market stats. You know, it's just a reminder for all of us to know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, bingo. Nevin, what were you going to say too?
I was gonna say it's like one of those like a really it's like a simple ones that's like, I mean, they kind of I forget about sometimes, just the really why. It's like that was one.
That thing works like a charm.
Yeah.
Dan and I were just discussing something, and I could have one of my coaches. He's a pretty legendary coach. If you guys are interested, if we can get a nice little size room, I can maybe talk to my coach about giving us a little pointer on expireds and FSBOs. And I think you guys would really enjoy that. So send Dan a message if you're interested in this group of people, since you guys are so awesome, to maybe learn who I learned from. So I'm sure I can get him to do it. I just got to find, the interest of how many people are going to want to do that. Just send Dan a message and we'll see about if we can get that put on or not.
Yeah. Yep. Now's the time to really hone on this skill set. So I applaud the 28 to 34 of you that dialed in today, as well as the ones that watched on Facebook. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You got our contact information. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you. And beautiful dog, Connie. I saw a dog jumping all over the place. Bye, guys.